You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we start our Wednesday show discussing the Kansas Income Tax Institute with K-State and Washburn law professor Roger McEowen and K-State Extension Assistant Rich Llewelyn. Roger, Rich, I appreciate you both taking the time to join us today.
Good to be with you, Shelby.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Roger, what is the Kansas Income Tax Institute and what topics will be covered?
Well, what it is an extension program, perhaps the most extensive one in the history of the university, going back, and I believe we're in the 77th or 78th year. Rich, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So this goes back World War II era, and this is really fulfilling the land-grant mission of taking education out to the people. This is a tax school. It's varied over the years. I've done it over 30 years. And we've had as many as 10 locations across the state that we've done the schools in. Now we have 6 in person and 2 online. And there were studies done, surveys done a long time ago. And I don't know if they've been updated by K-State recently, but 25 years ago, about 90 to 95% of all farm income tax returns prepared for people in the state of Kansas were prepared by practitioners that went through these tax schools. So the imprint of these schools is pretty big across the state. And it really is a program that helps a lot of people.
And what are some of the topics that are really important to those people that will be covered?
Well, you can imagine this year we're going to cover the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. That's going to consume a large part of day one at each of the schools, and myself and Paul Neefer will cover that in the first online broadcast, and then in Garden City and Hayes. So in late October, early November, we're going to be covering that on day one, along with some other things. But that'll also be day one on the other locations where Professor Ed Morse from Creighton Law School and Kathy Murphy, who's retired IRS, but a practitioner, a CPA out of Illinois in the St. Louis area, is going to partner with me on day two. She and I will do every location on day two. It's Paul and I on day one at the 2 online schools, and then Garden City and Hayes. And then Ed Morse has day one at the other 4 locations, which is Wichita, Salina, Lawrence, and Pittsburgh. But in terms of my own seminars, as I'm teaching the One Big Beautiful Bill Act now, that is taking a good solid 2 to 2.5 hours just to get through that. It's very substantial. We've got a lot of questions that come up from attendees, practitioners, CPAs, and tax attorneys that are attending. And of course, we have some guidance from the IRS. And as we get closer to the tax schools, I imagine we're going to get more guidance from the IRS and maybe even some proposed regs on some of the provisions. And so that's good. And I think one of the good things this year, and Rich can appreciate this too, is we got the bill signed into law on July 4 instead of mid-December or after we finish the tax schools, which is frustrating. That's happened in the past. And then you got to come back in and kind of update again to get ready for tax season. That puts tax practitioners in a crunch when things come in so late. You can't do any pre-planning for clients. And of course, IRS is late getting their forms done. It postpones the tax season often. And I don't think we're going to have those problems this year. We've got to run up to it, and we can anticipate issues for clients. We can factor in the farm economics of where they're going to be at in terms of a cash flow situation, and then do tax projections this year based on what the new law is. So a large part of day one is going to be teaching the new aspects of the law.
While you were mentioning that, does your programming, if something does come up, do you develop it if something changes in the middle of locations for the Income Tax Institute?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Constantly changing the presentation. Sometimes that's done on the fly. For example, either Paul or I might be speaking on day one, the other one is sitting at the table. And if we see something come across, maybe from a tax court ruling, or the IRS just put something out, we immediately then catch that and incorporate that in the presentation. Or if we see it that evening, we'll pick it up in the next day. So by the time we get to the end of the line in mid-December, that seminar actually varies, and in some years it can vary substantially from the first seminar in late October.
What other topics do you think are really important for attendees?
Well, other things we're going to cover on day one would be retirement plans for small businesses, and we have a bunch of individual taxpayer issues. We're going to go heavy on Schedule A and the tax implications of long-term care. That's a big issue with the graying of the population, particularly in rural areas of Kansas. We'll talk about theft losses with respect to internet scams and retiree issues in general. And of course, the Kansas Department of Revenue will make a presentation for about an hour, day one of each location. And then a big chunk, of course, is the Ag Issues chapter. We'll spend a substantial amount of time on Ag Issues. Paul and I will split it between day one and day two when he and I are together. And then I'll teach it on day two at the other locations when it's myself and Kathy Murphy. And then we'll talk about various types of specialized trusts, revocable trusts, and spousal planning trusts, family trusts, Q-tips, land trusts, whole host of issues with respect to trust. That's big this year. And then, of course, special needs trusts. That's going to get some of our attention this year, too. And we'll update people with respect to current rulings and cases. Then when we move to day two in a lot of the locations, we'll talk about some other new developments that include Social Security. Of course, ABBA makes some changes with respect to that. And we've got basically an hour devoted to IRS updates, what's going on in the agency, what are new forms, what are new perhaps problems they're dealing with, what are audit issues that are out there that practitioners need to be aware of. And then we'll dive into Schedule E and handle some rental real estate loss situations. How do you report royalties? What are the loss limitation rules? And then some specific issues with S corporations. We'll spend quite a bit of time on S corporations this year and how they factor into planning, and then how we handle various business deductions and credits, and some of the recent U.S. Supreme Court opinions that bear on tax in terms of the constitutional validity of regulations based on a 2024 opinion of the U.S. Supreme Court. So lots of stuff on the agenda this year.
What different types of people and professionals do you recommend take the time to attend this event?
Well, really, we get them from all across the board, from very skilled upper end kind of boutique firms to solo practitioner, very rural people where they use this workbook as their primary tool, as their research tool for helping their clients. And we'll get some farmers and ranchers, and we get some insurance people that are interested in this, some financial people. But it's heavy on the CPA side of things, the enrolled agent side of things, the accountant side of things, and then the others kind of fill in the blank. So basically anyone who makes a living preparing returns, this is a great opportunity for them.
Rich, we've mentioned a few different locations or ways people can come to this Tax Institute, but can you let us know where all those places are?
Well, the first one actually is online on October 30th and 31st, and then we go to Garden City and Hayes the following week in early November. Then Salina is the week after that, November 12 and 13. And then the next three will be latter November into December at Wichita, and then Lawrence, first part of December, and Pittsburgh. And then we wrap up December 15th and 16th with the second online meeting. So we'll have one online meeting early, one later, and then we'll have the 6 in-person meetings in between.
Is there also a later ethics learning opportunity?
There is. Roger will be taking that and doing it from Washburn on December 19th. And we've got contact information on our website for that, but they will need to register through Washburn. It'll be a 2-hour ethics class, which is what is needed. I'll just mention for the ones that we're doing through K-State, there is 16 hours of credit available for accountants and CPAs and attorneys. There's 15 hours of credit, 10 hours of tax law, and 5 hours of tax update available for enrolled agents and other IRS preparers. We have the Kansas hour of tax law for Kansas that doesn't count for the IRS credits, but everything else is involved there with the IRS stuff. So yeah, the ethics will kind of fill out the continuing education needs that people have with 2 hours on December 19th.
What is the cost?
For the in-person meetings for both days, it's $390. And then if it's just one day, that would be $340. And then online, we don't have some of the meals and stuff like that. So it's $335 for both days or $285 for one day.
If people want to find out more information about the Kansas Income Tax Institute, how can they do that?
Our agmanager.info website has a page with all of the information. They can go to that, and on the front page, we have our events on the right side. They can find the Kansas Income Tax Institute and all the locations there, and the page has all the other information they might need.
Roger, Rich, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thanks again, Shelby.
Yeah, appreciate you having us.
That was K-State Extension Assistant Rich Llewelyn and K-State and Washburn Law Professor Roger McEowen. In today's show notes on agtoday.net, I will link a brochure to the 77th Annual Kansas Income Tax Institute.